Imagine being surrounded by people who were supposed to love you, yet they became the very reason behind your silence. The ones who should have wiped your tears chose to pretend they didn't see them. The ones who should have lifted you up in your weakest hour stood by and watched you fall. You cried quietly, hoping that maybe one day they would notice, that maybe your pain would move their hearts, but it didn't. They walked past your brokenness, as if your soul was invisible. But here's the mystery of God's justice. It never fails to turn the tables. The same family that ignored your tears will one day witness what divine favor looks like. The same people who once dismissed your pain will see you elevated by the hand of the one they underestimated. Because when God decides to lift you, no silence, no betrayal, no ignorance can hold you down. You see, pain is not just an emotion, it's a classroom. Every tear you cried was a seed, and every seed planted in suffering must one day bloom in glory. The tears they ignored were never wasted. They watered the soil of your destiny. You thought you were breaking, but you were being built. You thought God was silent, but he was preparing a stage where your story would speak louder than any explanation ever could. There will come a time, perhaps sooner than you think, when those who mocked your weakness will have no choice but to honor your strength. Because divine elevation doesn't require approval, it only requires endurance. The same mouths that doubted you will speak your praise when God steps in. The same hearts that turn cold toward your pain will melt in awe at your transformation. Do you understand the beauty of this truth? God never forgets his wounded children. He collects every tear, records every sleepless night, and notes every injustice done against your heart. He is not blind to the cruelty of those who wore masks of family but carried hearts of stone. And when his appointed time comes, he does not simply restore you, he multiplies you. He does not just lift you up, he displays you. The day of divine reversal always arrives quietly. One morning, you will wake up and realize the storm has shifted. The same people who once avoided your presence will now be forced to watch the evidence of your restoration. They will see the peace in your spirit, the glow in your face, the doors opening that no man can shut. And they will realize that your tears were not signs of weakness, they were proof that God was near. When God lifts you, he doesn't just raise your position, he redeems your pain. He turns humiliation into honor, rejection into recognition, and silence into a song of victory. The family that ignored your tears will cry, not tears of joy, but tears of conviction, for they will see that while they were busy underestimating you, God was busy rewriting your story. And you, my friend, must not let bitterness harden your heart. For when the tables turn, you must remain humble, because your victory is not to prove them wrong. It's to prove that God is right, that his love is stronger than betrayal, that his justice is greater than human cruelty, and that his timing is perfect beyond all human understanding. So, lift your head. Stop mourning what they did not see. Stop waiting for apologies that may never come. God saw, God heard, God remembered, and God is about to lift you so high that even those who ignored your pain will know this was divine intervention. Your story will become their reminder that you can't ignore God's chosen ones and escape his justice. Because every tear has a purpose, every rejection has a reason, and every heartbreak has a holy outcome. The same family that ignored your tears will cry, not out of pity, but out of realization that they mishandled someone God was preparing for greatness. When you cried and no one came to comfort you, heaven listened. When you felt unseen, unheard, and unloved by the very people who should have stood beside you, God was not absent. He was there, silently watching, not out of neglect, but out of divine intention. For in the moments when your tears went unnoticed by man, they were being noticed by God, and not a single one of them fell without purpose. The tears that fell on your pillow in the quiet hours of the night were not wasted. They became liquid prayers that reached beyond the ceiling of your room and touched the throne of heaven itself. You see, God has a way of turning human rejection into divine preparation. The family that ignored your cries did not derail your destiny. They unknowingly defined it. While you wept, He was shaping your spirit. While they dismissed your pain, He was writing the script of your promotion. There is a mystery in how God works. He often hides greatness in grief, strength in sorrow, and destiny in disappointment. The very tears they ignored became the evidence of your transformation. What they saw as weakness was actually the refining fire that prepared you for the place God was leading you to. There's something sacred about suffering that no one witnesses. When you endure pain in silence, when you continue to love despite being unloved, when you forgive those who never apologize, something powerful happens inside your soul. You grow in ways comfort could never produce. You learn compassion, you learn patience, and most of all, you learn that your worth is not dependent on their recognition. Those ignored tears were teaching you the language of heaven, the ability to see yourself not through the eyes of others, but through the heart of God. People may ignore what they do not understand. Your family may have misread your sensitivity as weakness, your kindness as naivety, your humility as insignificance, but God sees differently. He saw your endurance, your silent sacrifices, your faith that refused to die even in the face of indifference, and now He is preparing to take those moments of pain and weave them into the fabric of your elevation. Because when He lifts you, it will not be by chance. It will be the direct result of every tear that fell unseen. God often allows you to be ignored so that He alone can be the one to lift you. If others had recognized your pain, they might have claimed credit for your restoration. But by allowing them to overlook you, God made room for His glory to be revealed without interference. That's why the same family that ignored your tears will one day be astonished by your rise. They will not understand how it happened, but you will. You will know it was those very tears they refused to acknowledge that built the foundation of your strength. Every ignored tear was a seed, and God never forgets where seeds are sown. He has been watering them with His mercy, nurturing them with His love, and in due season they will produce a harvest of favor. The family that once looked down on you will see you standing in places they never imagined. They will realize that their indifference did not destroy you. It directed you toward divine elevation. So if you're still wiping tears that no one sees, hold your head high. You are not forgotten. The God who counts the stars also counts your tears. He is storing them, not as reminders of your suffering, but as proof of your faithfulness, and soon those tears will become your testimony. When He lifts you up, every ignored moment will make sense, because with God, nothing you endure in silence ever stays buried. He transforms pain into power and tears into triumph. Your story is not over. It's about to begin again, this time from a higher place. The same tears that once blurred your vision will become the reason everyone sees your destiny clearly. And when that moment arrives, you'll understand. The family that ignored your tears unknowingly helped prepare the stage for your divine elevation. There are seasons in life when God hides you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Those silent moments, when your cries echo back unanswered, are not evidence of His absence, but signs of His molding. You see, God trains his strongest warriors in private. He takes you through seasons where you must learn to walk by faith, not applause, where you must keep standing even when no one stands with you, where your pain becomes the classroom and your tears the teacher. The silence you endured wasn't emptiness, it was divine education. When your family ignored your pain, when they made light of your struggles or dismissed your cries for help, you felt abandoned, but heaven was watching. God knew that silence would strengthen you. He knew that if others comforted you too soon, you'd depend on them instead of him. So, he allowed you to sit in that lonely space, not to break you, but to build your endurance. Every night you cried yourself to sleep. Every morning you forced yourself to keep going when your heart was tired. Those were lessons in spiritual resilience. The world saw nothing, but God saw a student mastering the art of endurance. In God's training ground, pain is never wasted. It chisels away pride, teaches humility, and builds unshakable faith. There are things you can only learn through silence. How to hear God's whisper, how to trust without visible proof, how to love without being loved back. Your silent suffering refined your spirit in ways comfort never could. You were being strengthened for the very destiny they didn't believe you could handle. They thought their coldness would crush you, but it only deepened your roots. Think of a tree standing in drought. It looks lifeless from the outside, but beneath the soil, its roots grow deeper, searching for water that can't be seen. That's what you were doing in your silent season. While everyone ignored your tears, your faith was digging deeper. You were learning to draw strength not from human approval, but from divine presence. And now, those deep roots will anchor you in the season of abundance God is preparing. When you were quiet, you weren't weak, you were learning. When you endured in silence, you weren't forgotten, you were growing. God was watching your restraint when you could have retaliated. He saw your self-control when you could have exposed their hypocrisy. That's why he can trust you with greater things now. You proved that your character is stronger than your pain. You didn't allow bitterness to poison your heart. Instead, you let brokenness birth wisdom. That's what makes your suffering holy. It transformed you instead of destroying you. And isn't it strange how God teaches us through what hurts the most? You prayed for strength, and he allowed pressure. You asked for wisdom, and he permitted betrayal. You begged for peace, and he brought silence. Because only in that silence could you learn that peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of God within it. Your silent suffering was his hidden curriculum, teaching you how to walk with him when no one walks with you, how to smile through tears, and how to speak hope into darkness. Now, when you look back, you'll see the divine logic behind it all. If your family had supported you, you might have settled where you didn't belong. If they had validated you, you might have built your identity on their opinions instead of God's truth. Their absence pushed you into his arms. Their silence taught you his voice. Their rejection carved out the space for his presence. You didn't know it then, but every ignored cry was building the foundation of your destiny. There is something sacred about surviving what was meant to break you. You are no longer fragile, you are fortified. Your tears didn't weaken you, they baptized you in strength. Your silent suffering turned you into someone who can now walk through storms without trembling. And when God lifts you, people will see the surface, the success, the peace, the glow, but they won't understand the depth that was carved in silence. Only you and God will know the cost of that strength. So don't despise the season of quiet pain. It was never punishment. It was promotion in disguise. God was training your spirit for something greater. You were not being overlooked. You were being prepared, because the stage he's about to place you on requires the wisdom you only gain from wounds. The family that ignored your tears didn't realize they were helping God train you for victory. And when He finally reveals you, your calm strength will speak louder than your words ever could. There will come a moment in your life when God turns the page so suddenly that even those who doubted you will be left speechless. The very people who dismissed you, who looked at your pain and saw weakness, who mocked your efforts and overlooked your worth, will have no choice but to witness your rise. This isn't pride, it's divine justice. God will ensure that every person who belittled your spirit, ignored your kindness, and walked away from your tears will see what His favor looks like when it rests upon the one they rejected. You see, the beauty of God's justice is that it doesn't require revenge. It simply reveals truth. When He begins to lift you, He doesn't need to humiliate your enemies. He allows your success, your peace, and your restoration to do the talking. Every insult they threw, every cold glance, every dismissive word, they all become meaningless in the light of your transformation, because nothing silences the arrogant like undeniable grace. Nothing humbles the proud like watching the one they overlooked become everything they thought you'd never be. When your family dismissed you, they believed their judgment was final. They thought your silence meant defeat. They mistook humility for weakness. But what they didn't know was that God had already written a different ending for your story. While they were busy discussing your flaws, God was designing your future. While they underestimated your potential, He was preparing your platform. He was molding you quietly, shaping you through pain, polishing your spirit until it reflected His glory. And when He reveals you, it will not be gradual, it will be undeniable. God never forgets the humiliation His children endure. He takes it personally. When you were left out, He was keeping record. When they laughed, He was taking note, not because He needed proof to act, but because He wanted to time your rise perfectly. There's something poetic about divine timing. God waits until the noise around you has faded, until those who hurt you have forgotten what they did, and then He begins to elevate you in plain sight. He ensures that your rise becomes a lesson, not out of vengeance but revelation, that you can't mock what God has blessed. When God's hand is on you, no one can bury you. They may try to ignore your light, but light doesn't ask for permission to shine. It simply breaks through the darkness. The same family that dismissed your worth will have to watch your glow, not because you demanded recognition, but because God ordained visibility. There will come a day when your peace will be their conviction. They will see you smiling again, not because life got easier, but because you learned to rest in the one who never dismissed you. Think about Joseph, the one whose own brothers threw him into a pit and sold him as a slave. They dismissed his dreams, mocked his faith, and tried to erase him from their lives. But when God raised Joseph, He didn't just free him, He made him ruler over the land. And when famine struck, the same brothers who betrayed him came begging for bread from the very hands they once despised. That's how God works. He turns dismissal into destiny, rejection into recognition, and betrayal into breakthrough. Your story holds that same divine pattern. The people who laughed at your pain will one day have to face the truth, that while they were busy overlooking you, God was busy favoring you. They will see the peace on your face, the strength in your voice, the blessings overflowing in your life, and they will realize that their opinions never had power over God's plans. The same ones who said you'd never make it will have to acknowledge that your rise wasn't luck. It was the result of divine intervention. And when that day comes, don't let bitterness speak, let grace speak. Don't remind them of what they did. Your elevation already does, because your victory isn't about revenge, it's about revelation. It shows that when God is for you, dismissal becomes direction. Their rejection pushed you closer to the throne, and their silence gave God the space to speak louder in your life. So, don't worry about proving yourself. Don't chase acknowledgement from those who couldn't see your worth. Your rise will be your response. Your peace will be your proof. Every blessing that unfolds will silently declare, this is what happens when God defends the one they dismissed. And when that happens, remember, it wasn't your tears that defined you. It was your endurance. The same people who once dismissed your worth will soon witness your divine rise, and they'll finally understand no one can bury what God has destined to rise. There is a reason God did not lift you the moment they hurt you. There is a reason your breakthrough took longer than your heartbreak. Divine timing is not delay, it's precision. When God chooses to move, He doesn't just aim to bless you. He aims to reveal something deeper about His nature. He times your elevation so that it doesn't just restore what was lost, it redeems the entire story. He waits until every hidden intention is exposed, until every mask has fallen, until every person who played a role in your pain has shown their true character. Only then does He move, because His justice must not only lift you, it must teach. When your family ignored your tears, you probably asked God, why are you silent? Why won't you act now? But heaven was never inactive. God was not ignoring you. He was arranging the stage. He was aligning circumstances, shaping hearts, and preparing the world to see what happens when He steps in. If He had acted too soon, the lesson would have been incomplete. You would have been healed, yes, but those who caused your pain would have walked away unchanged. God wanted your restoration to be a revelation, something no one could deny or explain away. Divine timing feels cruel when you're in the middle of the wait. The nights feel longer, the tears feel heavier, and the silence feels endless. But every second of that waiting season has purpose. God delays to develop. He delays to deepen your trust. He delays to detach you from depending on people who never cared to understand you. The longer you waited, the more your faith grew. You stopped looking for comfort from them and started finding peace in Him. And that, my friend, is the moment heaven starts to move, when your hope is no longer tied to man's validation, but to God's promise. When God finally acts, He does not whisper, He declares. The same people who thought time had erased your story will see that His promises don't expire. They will realize that the delay was never denial, it was divine preparation, because when God lifts you, He wants no one else to share His glory. That's why He let your pain linger until every false supporter had faded away. He wanted it to be undeniably clear that it was He who restored you, He who defended you, He who turned your mourning into laughter. Consider how nature itself mirrors this truth. The seed buried in the soil must wait through darkness, pressure, and silence. If it breaks the soil too soon, it dies under the sun. But when the timing is right, when the roots are deep enough, when the ground has warmed, when the rain has nourished, it emerges strong and ready to bloom. That's how God's timing works. Your hidden season wasn't punishment, it was protection. You were underground, but you were growing. You were unseen, but you were being prepared for sunlight that wouldn't destroy you. And when that moment of emergence comes, it will happen suddenly. God's timing often feels slow and then unfolds in an instant. You'll wake up one morning and everything will have shifted. Opportunities will open effortlessly. People will see you differently. The doors that once stayed shut will swing wide. And those who ignored you will watch in stunned silence as grace crowns your life. That's what perfect timing looks like. It turns years of waiting into moments of wonder. Never forget, God's delays are never mistakes. Every tear you cried was a marker in His divine schedule. Every unanswered prayer was being stored for a greater release. Every time they dismissed you, it added another layer to the testimony He's preparing. The family that ignored your pain thought your story had ended, but God was only writing the preface. When His timing arrives, the same people who walked past your sorrow will be forced to witness your restoration, and they will know it could only be God. So, don't curse the waiting season. Don't rush what heaven is still preparing. The same God who allowed the silence will one day speak in power, and when He does, your rise will be so radiant that it will rewrite the memory of your suffering. You'll look back and realize that His timing wasn't late, it was perfect beyond measure. Because divine timing doesn't just change your situation, it transforms you first. And when your spirit is ready, your season changes. Then the world sees what God can do with a heart that refused to give up during the wait. The day is coming when the family that ignored your tears will watch God lift you, not at random, but right on time, when the testimony will be undeniable, when the timing will be divine, and when every ounce of your pain will finally make sense. There comes a time when God tells you to stop explaining yourself, to stop defending your character to people determined to misunderstand you, to stop trying to prove your worth to those who were blind when you were at your lowest. Because when God restores you, you won't need to speak a single word. Your restoration will do the talking. Every blessing, every open door, every ounce of peace radiating from your face will testify on your behalf. Those who ignored your tears will finally see what your silence was building, divine vindication. You see, God doesn't just fix what was broken, He magnifies it until no one can deny His hand upon your life. That's why your restoration won't be subtle. It will be sacred and public. The same family who dismissed your pain will be forced to witness the beauty that came out of your suffering. They won't hear a speech, they'll see a transformation. Because there's something powerful about a person who rises quietly after being torn down publicly. You don't need revenge. You don't even need recognition. God's favor is the only evidence required. When God begins to restore you, He doesn't ask for your permission to shine His glory through your story. He uses what hurt you as the very thing that reveals His power. You'll find yourself standing in peace that you didn't earn by force. It's a peace born from pain endured well, and that peace will speak louder than every accusation ever thrown at you. They will see that the same person they thought would never recover has been crowned with strength, wisdom, and grace. Think of Job, mocked by his friends, misunderstood by his own household, left in ashes by those who should have supported him. Yet, when God restored him, it wasn't a quiet restoration. Scripture says God gave him double what he lost. His pain became proof of God's power. He didn't have to argue or explain. His very existence became the message. That is what divine restoration does. It silences every false word without a single argument. God knows that no explanation could ever satisfy those who wronged you, so He gives you results instead. While they talked about you, He was preparing blessings that would speak louder than gossip. While they ignored your cries, He was constructing a stage for His glory. And when the time is right, He will not just restore what was taken, He will give it back multiplied. The people who turned away when you had nothing will be unable to look away when you have everything that was promised. Your restoration will not come as revenge, it will come as revelation. They will see how God rewrites a story. They'll realize that your tears were not the end of your journey, but the ink with which He wrote a new beginning. The beauty in your face, the peace in your spirit, the way you carry yourself without resentment, all of it will preach a sermon without words. Because true restoration doesn't scream, it shines. God doesn't restore you privately when you were broken publicly. He ensures that the people who watched your downfall are present to witness your redemption. He wants your transformation to serve as evidence that His grace is undefeated. That's why He said, "I will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies," not to humiliate them, but to glorify Himself through you. So when they see you at peace, thriving, and walking in joy, they will realize that only God could have done this. The family that ignored your tears will watch in awe as your life blossoms without their support. They'll see doors opening for you that were never meant to open. They'll see connections forming, opportunities unfolding, and blessings flowing that no one can explain logically. And in that moment, they'll understand something sacred. That when God decides to restore someone, not even blood ties can block His hand. So don't waste your energy proving yourself to anyone. Don't argue, don't justify, just keep walking faithfully. Because when God lifts you, He doesn't need your words. He uses your life as the evidence. Every step you take in peace will echo louder than the noise of their judgment. Every smile after pain, every success after struggle, every calm response after chaos will declare, "God did this." And when people ask how you made it through, how you survived the neglect, the loneliness, the betrayal, just smile, because words can't capture the depth of what you endured. Only your restoration can. You are not just being lifted, you are being displayed. The same family that ignored your tears will soon see your restoration and know this was not luck. This was divine intervention. God Himself stepped into your story, and now your victory speaks the language of heaven. Silence that thunders. When God begins to lift you, there will be a temptation that whispers quietly in the back of your soul. The temptation to show everyone who doubted you that they were wrong. You'll feel the pull to prove something, to make them see what they missed when they ignored your tears. But listen closely, for this is where many fall. Your rise was never meant to be a stage for pride. It was meant to be a platform for grace. God didn't lift you to make you arrogant. He lifted you to make you an example of what divine mercy looks like when it clothes itself in humility. It's easy to become hardened after pain. It's natural to want to look back and say, "Now do you see me?" But that isn't the voice of wisdom. It's the echo of old wounds. And if you're not careful, those wounds can shape your victory into vanity. When God blesses you, He expects you to handle success with the same grace you carried through suffering. The same humility that kept you silent through the storm must now keep you grounded in the sunlight. Because humility is the language of heaven, and those who speak it never fall from grace. When God lifts you above those who ignored you, He is not giving you a throne of revenge. He is giving you a testimony of redemption. You must wear your blessings like armor, not ornaments. Protection against pride, not proof of superiority. For the moment you start looking down on those who once looked down on you, you become what you once prayed God would save you from. Remember, it wasn't your strength that raised you. It was His mercy, and mercy demands humility in return. Your rise should be a reflection of God's character, not man's cruelty. Let your success be silent, your gratitude loud, and your heart soft. The world glorifies vengeance, but heaven honors grace. The most powerful revenge isn't making others feel small. It's becoming so peaceful, so healed, and so content that nothing they do can disturb your spirit. You see, true victory is not standing above them, it's standing beyond them. It's looking at the same faces that ignored your tears and choosing not to repay evil with evil, but to smile with the same heart that once wept in their presence. Think of Joseph again. When his brothers who betrayed him stood before him begging for food, he didn't retaliate. He wept. He forgave. He saw divine purpose in the pain they caused. That's humility, not weakness but wisdom. He could have crushed them, yet he chose compassion. Why? Because he understood that his elevation wasn't about him, it was about God's plan. The same is true for you. Your rise isn't for revenge, it's for revelation. It's to show that kindness still wins, that forgiveness is stronger than resentment, and that God's justice is enough without your intervention. When the season shifts and your life begins to overflow, remind yourself of the nights you cried alone. Not to reopen wounds, but to stay grateful for where God brought you from. Gratitude keeps pride from taking root. Say to yourself, I am here not because they saw me, but because God did. That sentence alone can protect your heart from arrogance. You must never let success make you forget who healed you, who carried you, who turned your private pain into public purpose. Humility after victory is the truest sign of spiritual maturity. Anyone can praise God when they're lifted, but only the wise can remember Him when they're admired. When your family sees your blessings, don't boast. Bless them. When they feel convicted, don't gloat. Pray for them. Because sometimes the most powerful sermon you can ever preach is the one spoken through your gentleness. Your peace will pierce their hearts far deeper than pride ever could. God elevates those He can trust, and He tests that trust through humility. If He senses arrogance in your heart, He withholds the next level until you learn to bow again. So stay humble, no matter how high you rise. Don't let success steal the tenderness that suffering taught you. Walk softly, speak kindly, love deeply, because the same God who lifted you is the same one who watched you cry, and He expects that memory to shape how you treat others when you're standing in the light. So when the family that ignored your tears sees your elevation, let them see grace, not grudges. Let them see someone who chose to heal instead of hate. Let them see that your heart stayed pure even when life became powerful. That is what separates those who are truly chosen from those who are simply blessed. God lifts many, but He keeps only the humble, and when He finds humility resting inside glory, He pours out even more. There will come a day when silence will no longer protect those who pretended not to see your pain. The same family who brushed away your tears as if they were meaningless, who made you feel invisible in your own home, will one day have to acknowledge what they once denied, that God was with you all along. They will see what their blindness could not perceive, that your suffering was not a sign of weakness, but a seed of divine purpose. And when that seed blooms, they will not be able to look away. God has a way of revealing truth that words could never express. He does not need to humiliate anyone to prove a point. He simply blesses the one they ignored. That blessing speaks louder than any accusation, louder than any defense, louder than the noise of gossip or judgment. When the favor of God falls upon your life, it demands acknowledgement. Even those who refuse to believe in you will have to bow their pride before the evidence of His hand on your life. You see, God doesn't forget the tears you cried in secret while pretending to be fine around them. He doesn't overlook the loneliness that came from being surrounded by people who were supposed to love you but instead made you feel like a burden. Heaven keeps records. And when the time comes, God doesn't just lift you. He makes sure the right eyes see it, not to glorify you, but to glorify Himself through you. Because when He elevates the broken, the proud are forced to confront their blindness. When your season of acknowledgement comes, it won't be because you demanded it. It will be because God ordained it. He will position you in such a way that the same people who dismissed your value will now need what you carry. They will see you walking in peace they can't explain, favor they can't deny, and blessings they can't compete with. The same mouths that once whispered behind your back will fall silent, not from guilt, but from awe, for they will realize that while they ignored you, God was cultivating you. And what a beautiful thing it is when God Himself speaks on your behalf through your life. You won't have to say, "I told you so." Your transformation will say it for you. Your peace, your growth, your success, all of it will stand as divine testimony that the stone they rejected truly became the cornerstone. The same family who called you weak will see strength that came only from surviving what they put you through. The same ones who doubted your purpose will see the hand of God carving glory out of your pain. Think of David, overlooked by his own father, dismissed as unimportant, sent to the fields while others were being chosen. Yet God saw him in the pasture and anointed him for the palace. When the time came, even the ones who ignored him had to watch him become king. That is how divine acknowledgement works. God doesn't need permission to honor you. And when that moment arrives, even your family, the very ones who once called you unworthy, will be witnesses to His perfect justice. But remember this, when acknowledgement finally comes, do not let your heart grow proud. Let your peace speak, not your pride. Let your kindness be your response, not your bitterness. Because true elevation is not proven by how high you rise, but by how softly you walk once you're there. You will not need to remind them of how they treated you. Life will do that. God will do that. God will do that. Their memory of who you were will collide with the evidence of who you've become, and that alone will bring conviction. There is something sacred about being vindicated by peace. It's the kind of victory that doesn't shout, it glows. When they finally acknowledge you, it won't be because you forced their respect. It will be because God made your life undeniable. You'll stand before them, not in arrogance, but in quiet grace, and they'll know deep down they mishandled someone God had His hand upon, and in that moment, the tears they ignored will echo in their own hearts. So don't chase acknowledgement. Don't demand it. It's already written into your destiny. When the appointed hour arrives, God Himself will orchestrate the scene. He'll lift you high enough that the same eyes that once rolled at your faith will now widen in disbelief. The same hearts that dismissed you will whisper your name in reverence, and you won't need to say a word. Your restoration, your peace, your divine glow will say everything. Because when God decides it's time for acknowledgement, no heart can stay blind, and no mouth can stay silent. They will see, they will know, and they will remember that they once ignored the very one God was anointing. And that, my friend, will be the quiet justice of heaven. The moment when God proves that every tear you cried was never wasted, and every wound you carried was only preparing you for a day when the ones who ignored you would have no choice but to see you through His glory. There will always be moments in life when you are brought to your knees by the people you thought would lift you, when your kindness is treated as weakness, your love as foolishness, and your tears as something unworthy of attention. Yet, what they never understood is that the God you serve never leaves His wounded unseen. He may allow you to be broken, but only so that His glory can shine through the cracks. And now, the same family that once ignored your pain will one day stand before the masterpiece that pain created. They will see what God can do with a soul that refused to give up, even when it felt forgotten. Spur ja da heva. Every tear that fell in silence had a purpose. Every lonely night was counted. Every moment you were dismissed was documented in heaven. God was not punishing you, He was preparing you. And preparation always comes before presentation. That's why he allowed your tears to fall where no one could see them, because he knew that one day those tears would become the oil that shines upon your elevation. When you cried, you were sowing. When you endured, you were growing. And now it's time for reaping. God never forgets a heart that stays pure through pain. You could have turned bitter, but you didn't. You could have fought back, but you chose peace. You could have hated them, but you chose to let God handle it. That is why he is about to lift you in ways that no human hand could have achieved. You kept your integrity in the fire, and that is what made you unstoppable. The very people who said you'd never recover will watch you stand tall, not in arrogance, but in divine grace. This is the mystery of God's justice. He doesn't just restore you, he redeems everything attached to your name. He makes your story the very thing that exposes their blindness, and he does it not to humiliate them, but to heal you. Because God doesn't build your success on revenge, he builds it on revelation. He wants them to see what his mercy looks like when it raises someone they ignored. Your rise will not be a shout of "look at me." It will be a whisper of "look what God has done." And when that day arrives, walk gently. You will not need to remind them of their cruelty. Your peace will remind them enough. You will not need to justify yourself. Your blessings will do that silently. Because the most powerful evidence of God's hand upon a person's life is not the applause they receive, it's the calmness they carry after surviving what should have broken them. You will stand in rooms they never imagined you would enter. You will walk in peace that no apology could ever bring, and they will know it was never luck, never coincidence, but the favor of a faithful God. So hold your head high. Do not let your past pain steal the joy of your present promise. You are walking into a season where your tears are turning into testimony, your suffering into strength, and your rejection into revelation. The same family that ignored your tears will see God's fingerprints all over your life. They will see the glow of divine justice on your face, and they will know that grace, not grudges, shaped your destiny. Let this truth sink deep into your heart. No tear you've ever cried has gone unseen, and no wound you've carried has gone unnoticed. God has been watching the entire time, not as a distant observer, but as a father preparing the perfect moment to lift you. When he does, it will not just be a breakthrough, it will be a resurrection. You will rise from the same ground where they buried your worth, and your life will declare that what man overlooks, God overflows. The family that ignored your tears will cry. Not tears of cruelty this time, but tears of realization. Because they will finally see that you were never the weak one, you were the chosen one. They will see that the same God they doubted in your life was working quietly in the background, turning pain into power, tears into triumph, and silence into strength. And when they finally bow their heads in acknowledgement, not to you, but to the God who lifted you, smile, for that will be the moment heaven's justice will be complete. The ignored will be seen, the rejected will be restored, and the forgotten will be favored. Your story is proof that when God decides to lift someone, no cruelty, no rejection, and no indifference can stop his plan. The family that ignored your tears will soon see the glory of the one who never ignored your prayers. And that, my friend, is the divine beauty of your story. It doesn't end in pain, it ends in power.